Rights organization. Its members throughout the United States and the world are the premier advocates for civil rights in their communities, conducting voter mobilization and monitoring equal opportunity in the public and private sectors. For many of you, or many of us, we're familiar with something that was called the Million Man March. That was a few years ago. But if you're current, you know that in October of this year, there was the anniversary. I think it was the 20th anniversary of that Million Man March, and coming together of people, and many of us all having the same issues in common. And we're very fortunate enough today to have with us Minister Dahveed Muhammad. And you're going to have to forgive my ignorance in pronouncing certain names. And it's not the fault of the person who I'm introducing. It's my ignorance in that how I was taught in school. I was taught if you didn't have a name that was Smith, Jones, or North European, I tried to, usually the idea is to make the person with the name feel bad. Because, I'm the one. But see, and I've gotten used to not getting embarrassed when I screw up somebody's name, because that's part of my miseducation. And I'm glad to have with us the Dahveed, see, and I'm going to ask him to help us with that. Minister Dahveed Muhammad, who's we'll find, and he's at Mosque 23 in Buffalo, and we're going to talk this morning about the role of the Muslim organization, and that it's not a separate or has a whole separate agenda, but when you start listening to what is being said, and with the program that just finished here, many of us have the same issues and the same concerns. But what's holding us back from pushing those forward is that we're all going in different directions. All of us, for example, want to leave Buffalo and go to California. And some of us think if we go through Canada. Other people think if we go through New Jersey, we'll get there. If we go through the Atlantic Ocean, we'll get there. But we all have the same issue, and that is to get to California. But if we end up, each of us going different directions, one of us might get there. But as far when we stop and look back, we'll see that we never really reached our goal. And that's why I'm very fortunate this morning to have Minister Dahveed Muhammad with us, and I'd like to welcome him to the NAACP Speaks.
Thank you so much, Brother Frank Mesiah, for having us on. I'm honored to be on. I'm thankful for your perennial leadership as the president of the NAACP and the great work that the NAACP has always done. I'm especially honored to be on your show, fresh back from Washington, D.C. at the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March.
Tell us about that.
Wonderful, joyous occasion that the spirit of unity, brotherhood, and love was permeated the entire atmosphere. And it was one of those things that has to happen every so often to galvanize and to recharge and electrify and unify us. And we didn't come away. We came back with marching orders and instructions and some concrete steps that we want to take, because this time around the demand was for justice or else. You may remember from 1995 that the rallying cry was for atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility. And that theme was followed through on. Black men wanted to atone for our failure as husbands, failure as fathers, and as pillars in our community. And we came back and saw concrete results from that in 95. And so 10-10-15 was about justice or else. And we are here right now to present some concrete steps that we want to take to continue on the theme of the demand for justice or else. And so I'd like to be able to talk about that a little bit this morning on the show.
And not only are we talking about what's happening within the Muslim organization, but it's more than that as you're reaching out the Muslim group and to bring these divergent groups together, maybe under one umbrella, that we all have the same issues and the same concerns, but instead of working at separate odds and going different ways, if we come together and put our heads together, put our energies together, put our skills of all of that together, you'd be surprised how we can turn things around in this country in keeping with democracy. See, some people think if you want to change things, you want to revolutionize things. No, we're going to use the same system, but we're going to find there's going to be some changes. Now, could you get into some of the issues that that came out of the 1010 Million Man March?
Absolutely. We've long been taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that our unity is our most powerful weapon, and in fact, our unity is more powerful than an atomic or hydrogen bomb.
But wait, you mean our unity as Muslims, or our unity as a people?
Our unity as a people, descended from slaves right here in North America and throughout the earth. Recently, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan said that our unity will solve 95% of all of our problems. And so unity is something that we really have not tried as much as we should. And so the Nation of Islam is exactly that. It is a nation, and it's not about you being a Muslim or me being a Christian or all of these artificial divisions, but a nation is exactly what it implies, and that includes all of the areas of discipline and skills and all of the issues that affect us all as a people. And so we are striving for the unity and oneness of our people. And the things that came out of the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March is that this is not a moment, this is a movement. And so the demand for justice or else continues, and we have a strategy which the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wanted us to come back to all of our cities and to be able to implement. What you saw in D.C. on 10/10/15, you saw nearly 1 million people who were there. That 1 million people represented other millions who could not attend, did not attend, but were able to watch it on C-SPAN and were affected by it, are in support of it. And so there's the unseen millions that we want to unify with, and we want to come back and we want to have a voter registration drive. But this time we don't want to register as Democrat or Republican. We want to register as independent so that these candidates will have to speak to our agenda. We're not going to vote for a person or a personality, but we're going to vote for whoever speaks effectively to address our agenda as black people, and we want to hold all candidates and elected officials accountable, because they will campaign on one platform but then get in office and then they don't follow through on any of the campaign promises that they made. And so we want to galvanize and mobilize to register as independent and to have candidates address our agenda items before we'll give them our vote.
Okay, let me reinforce that. What we're talking about now is registering. They're talking about registering as, for those of you who are familiar with the registration process, you fill out this form, and on the form at the bottom it asks, what party do you want to become a part of? And you indicate Democrat, Republican, Liberal. And what we're talking about here today is to leave that part blank and to not register. See, if you register, and again, this all has to be talked out, but if you register as just an independent, there has to be an independent party. But then that narrows some of the things you would be able to do at a primary election. But they're talking, it's my understanding, that when they said they're going to, and you can re-register. See, a lot of times if I'm a Democrat and I feel like registering as a Republican, I can go to the Board of Elections or get one of the forms, and I can change my registration from Democrat to Republican or vice versa. But also, if I'm a Democrat or a Republican, I can go and change that designation from Democrat or Republican to I don't want to register as a member of any party. Well, see, that becomes a little tricky when somebody is out trying to get my register, want me to vote for them. Because that person, if they're a Democrat, will try to throw on, here's what the Democrat's going to do for you. And then if it's a Republican, here's what the Republicans are going to do for you. In contrast, if they don't know quite what you are, a Democrat or Republican, and you're neither, they may ask a different question like, what is you would like me to do? Versus giving you what their position is. You then, without that designation of Democrat or Republican, you might be in a stronger position when you deal with some of these political people that to get from them what it is they can do for your issues and your concerns.
That is exactly what we want to do. For too long, we have just given our vote to the Democratic Party. We've been loyal Democrats, and we have not gotten anything in return for that, really. And so, we at one time in this country, most black people were Republicans. Most candidates that we voted for were Republicans. And the Republican Party was really the favorable party for black people at one time in this country. And since that time now, we've just been giving our vote to the Democratic Party, and they don't even speak to our agenda. So justice or else means that it can no longer be business as usual. And as you know, before 10/10/15, we hosted a town hall meeting where we invited the NAACP, the Urban League. We invited all the various frontline organizations to talk about what a good local agenda might be. And also that local agenda, we will forward to a national agenda. But we have to have an agenda that candidates speak to and address before we will give them our vote just on blind faith and loyalty that they never deliver on. And so we want to still have that kind of town hall meeting where we continue to formulate an agenda that we're going to ask all candidates to speak to.
And I guess that's what when you think of a party, a Democratic or Republican Party, you kind of assume that party and its philosophy and whatever legislation it initiates will be taking you into consideration and what your needs are. But I think the major complaint now with some of the major parties is that they say very nice things to you at a meeting. And they may even show up at your wedding. You invite them to your wedding or even to your funeral. They'll be there, in deep sympathy with you. But when they go back to wherever they came from, whether it's Albany or Washington, D.C. or wherever it might be, when they return to their place of operation, and you look at what the points that party is pushing and how they back off on some of those issues, and you then say, wait a minute, this person gave me a beautiful speech and talk of what they were going to do for me and my people, and then you find out they go back and do everything possible that takes away your jobs, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. But when they talk to you, they looked at your eyes, they saw how you were grinning or smiling and nodding in agreement, and they maybe came into your religious institution and they got a big round of applause, and you felt, oh boy, this is, look, who's, Senator so-and-so or Representative so-and-so, they're really looking out for us. And you find out when they end up voting for the different kind of bills, those are different kind of bills and different issues that work against us. And by being an independent voter, independent, not necessarily joining a party that's called the Independent. Maybe, I don't know where that'll go, but to be an independent party. That's why when you listen to the media today, when it talks about the Democrats have so much percentage and the Republicans have so much, but then there's the unknown, those who aren't registered. That's where the power is. And that's why a lot of these political people are appealing to that group that they don't know quite where they're coming from.
Absolutely. And you saw what we see in this country, black people, when we get dissatisfied, we express our dissatisfaction by protest. White folks, they express their dissatisfaction by mobilizing. You saw Blue Dog Democrats. Blue Dog Democrats, they're Democrats, but they're conservative. You saw the Tea Party, and you saw these Tea Party groups and other Blue Dog Democrat groups forcing candidates to speak to their agenda. And so, they mobilize and they force candidates and elected officials to address their agenda. And that's what we have to do, borrow a page from that playbook, and we have to not be loyal to one party or another, but force candidates to be loyal to an agenda. That agenda will be made up of the feedback and the ideas from the organizations and the leadership in our community that are on the front line, that are in contact with the people, and know the agenda items that need to be addressed by these people that we send into office.
Let me build on that, because as you know, when the Barack Obama was elected to be president of the United States, that shocked a whole lot of people, and we can see how the Republican Party now, their mission was, even on the day of his inauguration, to mobilize to vote against everything or anything he planned. But beyond that, that group of people who harbored that dislike, and we call it has to be race, because it had never happened to another president in the United States where somebody would be elected to as president, and then a total party would say, we're going to see if we can defeat this person, not to build the country, not to make the country strong, but to defeat this particular president. And the only thing we saw as far as a variable was that the president happened to be black. And those groups of people, as was just mentioned, they didn't walk around and parade around and do all this stuff. They mobilized. And that now we have over 40-some states who have created special voting ID that has the effect and will have the effect of reducing the number of people of color, of poor people, who will be able to vote. And they did not come out saying, we don't want black folks voting. What happened, they ended up with a black president, and they said, how are we going to do this? And they did it, as was mentioned, with a strategy, with a planning, and a coming together of people of like interest. And in state after state, new forms of voter registration were developed, and those forms of registration ended up reducing, or at least attempting, we won't know until the election, attempting to reduce the voting power of people of color. And this country doesn't talk about it, and what I'm very pleased with is what Minister Farrakhan and Minister Muhammad here are talking about is they're out front talking about mobilizing our communities, and people haven't been talking about that.
Right. And what you saw in D.C., like I said, 1 million people represented, at least maybe 10 million more that did not come. You saw a lot of youth that were there. You saw the Native American, indigenous nations that were there. And so right now, voter apathy is at an all-time high. People are not voting because they know that they will not get anything for their vote. They're not getting anything from the election process. this is a way where we can galvanize and electrify the voter base, because it can't be business as usual. It has to be a different approach, a different strategy, and we propose to register people en masse as independents, and then we propose to take the agenda and put it before all candidates before we'll give our vote. And this is a way young people who historically do not vote or participate, to galvanize the youth and galvanize all the various other groups as a continuous demand for justice, or else we will not send you to office and give you our vote unless you address the agenda items on our agenda. And all of the agenda items are to improve the condition and the quality of life for our people in the urban cities of America. And unless you address those agenda items, and then we're going to come back and we're going to enforce, we're going to hold you accountable for what you promised to do. But in fact about it, we can learn that the Tea Party and these other groups, you see candidates and elected officials scrambling to make sure that they cater to these organized groups of people. We want to be organized. We want to hold people accountable, and we want to give our vote to those that will address our agenda.
Yeah, and this theme, as you know, is different from the political person coming up and telling you what the person's coming up telling you what they are going to do for you. It turns that whole concept around, that you now tell the political person what you're expecting of them. Right. That's a total new way of thinking. And I know it may be difficult for some people to grasp, but for the political people, they'll understand right away, because they don't have to spend all their time, if they're going into a black community, let me see what I can find out about black history, and I'll go drop some Martin Luther King or words on them, and that'll take care of it. And then if I go in an Italian neighborhood, I'll sing "Oh Santa Lucia." You know, it depends. In fact, even Native Americans, I was at a program the other day, you know, Native Americans said after all these years of being here, that now they call that Columbus Day. That guy came over here from Europe, and he found the Arapaho, the Iroquois, and these Native Americans said, wait a minute, we were here, ain't nobody discovered us.
Right.
You know, we were already here. We had our own names.
Right.
We had our own structure. We had our own culture. And now we have a day set aside every year. Yeah, let's have a day off, but let's call it something else. But we ain't going to call it Columbus Day, like we appreciate this guy that you told us came over here and discovered me, an Arapaho or an Iroquois. Let's get the story straight. And we know there's going to be resistance to that as people start. The other side has to begin looking at itself in a different way.
Right, and we want to come back from 10-10-15, and we've anytime we've ever had a Million Man March, we've always come back with concrete steps and action that we have taken, and it's no different this time. And so we are, we came back from the Million Family March in 2005, and we set up the Buffalo Local Action Committee, and the work that you see going on in education. The Ministry of Education of the BLAC is a direct result of the Million Man March in 2005. And we want to have that same spirit. We want you to come out. The BLAC meets every Thursday, 6 o'clock at the Raffi Green Center, 6 o'clock every Thursday, and there's 9 ministries. So we've always taken action and hit the ground running whenever we come back from a national mobilization like that, so we can mobilize locally. And we just want to ask you and implore and urge you to get involved with this and come out to the BLAC meeting every Thursday at 6 o'clock at the Raffi Green Center on Fillmore in Glenwood. There's also a way to keep up with what's going on at our website, which is www.noibuffalo.org.
Wait, you went so fast, I was trying to get to my pen and write that down. But okay, could you go through that just a little slower?
Yes, we have a website, www.noibuffalo.org, and we have our Buffalo Local Action Committee, BLAC, meetings every Thursday, 6 o'clock p.m. at the Raffi Green Center on Fillmore and Glenwood. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Buffalo Local Action Committee. We have a Facebook page. And the question is the question is no longer, well, what are you all doing? What have you done since the Million Man March? The question has to be turned back around onto you. What have you done to keep the spirit of the Million Man March alive? And if we're honest with ourselves, most of us have to say that we've done nothing. But there's always been concrete results and action that's been taken, and we want to hit the ground running. We want to mobilize to impact upon the next presidential election, the next congressional elections, and we want to put people in office that are going to no longer go about business as usual, but will advance an agenda that will raise our people in all areas: education, jobs, economics, health, and businesses and whatnot. And so if you'd like to be a part of that and not just a talker but be a doer, we urge you to come to the Buffalo Local Action Committee meetings every Thursday, 6 o'clock at the Raffi Green Center on Fillmore and Glenwood.
And this is not just you talking and sharing this information with us, but there is this, on paper, a structure of what this, of this. There is
Yes, sir. We have a national
agenda of some
We
type.
do have a national agenda that we want to update the national agenda. We want to supplement. This national agenda was formulated after the Million Man March in 2005. We want to supplement and update that right up to the modern time, and we want to supplement it with the feedback that we gathered from so many great minds at the town hall meeting that we had at the Meriwether Library on Jefferson. This took place on Monday, September 14th, and we got great feedback, and we want to send that to the national agenda, which will be incorporated to supplement that. But also we want to take that same agenda and address local issues as well as the national agenda. And we have that, and we want to make sure that all leaders and organizations have the national agenda, because we want to be unified on the same page and united, so that we're not reinventing the wheel and going back to square one and having folks say, well, what do you all want? Why do you all keep coming back? It's because we never went to the root cause of the problem that we suffer from. We have to go deep enough to address the root cause.
And we'd like to thank Minister Dahveed Muhammad for helping us understand and to broaden in most of our minds that the Muslims are not talking about something just for the Muslim community, but what they're talking about, reaching out and bringing together all as many segments of the community of color to analyze and to look at what the issues are and to come forward with solutions that the people of color have identified as being the issues. And with that, last minute, we only have about 30 seconds.
Right, everything we need, we have it already within our community. We have all the expertise, all the experience that we need in people like yourself, and the answers to the problems are already out there among our people. We just want to gather that in a united way on a unified agenda, and we want to address our own needs, and we have everything it takes to do that.
And with that, we'd like to thank Minister Dahveed Muhammad for being with us today on the NAACP Speaks. And I know that as we move forward and as this whole program moves forward, we'll have him back again, hopefully in a few weeks, to talk about this.
Yes, sir. I'm going right now to meet with the Honorable Minister Farrakhan in Chicago, and I'll be back with an update for you next week.
And we thank you for being with us today on the NAACP Speaks. My name is Frank Mesiah, your host and president of the Buffalo Branch NAACP. And the Lord willing, we'll be back with you in 2 weeks. See, then they should play that. they are listening to every voice. Okay, thank you.